So we're in chapter 9, and Mephibosheth. Anybody remembers who he is? Or know who he is?
Yes,
I think
please.
the first time we're being introduced. Go ahead.
I think it's Saul's son. I think it's one of Saul's sons.
It's actually Jonathan's
Or
son,
Jonathan.
Saul's
Okay.
grandson.
Grandson. Okay.
Right. Let's read on now. Do we have a read or do I go ahead? Any readers? All right, I'll go ahead since we don't have any volunteers.
I'll read, Pastor.
Go right ahead.
David asked, "Is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Now there was a servant of Saul's household named Ziba. They summoned him to appear before David, and the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" Scroll down for me, please. "At your service," he replied. The king asked, "Is there no one still alive from the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness?" Ziba answered the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan. He is lame in both feet." "Where is he?" the king asked. Ziba answered, "He is at the house of Machir, son of Amiel, in Lodebar." So King David had him brought from Lodebar, from the house of Machir, son of Amiel. When Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. David said, "Mephibosheth." "At your service," he replied. "Don't be afraid," David said to him, "for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table." Mephibosheth bowed down and said, "What is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me?" Then the king summoned.
All right, let's stop there for a little bit. All right, so we know who Mephibosheth is, and where was David at? Who can give me an idea of where you think David was at when he started to send out this broadcast message? Is there anybody left? What did he say of Saul's household? Let's go right up back to the top, please. All right. So he says. So King David said, "Is there anybody of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness?" All right. You want to tell me where you think he's at? Where is he at? Anybody? Where is he at? Where's David at? Yeah, instead of his mindset.
Sorry. Repeat, please.
Where is he at in terms of his mindset? No, it's a simple enough thing. There's no mystery to it. It's just crazy.
I think he wanted to honor Jonathan since they were friends. I think also based on what we've seen before, he really did honor Saul, even though Saul was at him for some time. So I think he wanted to honor somebody.
Basically, I think it's just what he said. He asked, "Is there anybody in the house of Saul?" So I believe David's mind was in such a place that even though he had been mistreated so much by Saul, he was quite prepared to honor Saul's household. You know, he says, "Is there anybody from Saul's household?" So it leads us to think that if there had been a grandson from one of his other sons, he would have been quite willing to honor him as well, right? And what it showed me about the heart of David, which is why I enjoy studying him, is that his heart is really a very forgiving, pure heart. You understand me? How many of us would do something like that? Yes, you're coming to the kingship. How many of us would think back on the house of Saul? You're enjoying good things. How many of us would even care about the house of Saul? We see what David experienced on the hands of Saul. Why would you even be looking back to the house of Saul to honor anybody from the house of Saul? But you'll see throughout the Bible that he treated the house of Saul with respect. Not only when Saul was alive, but when Saul was dead. Right? He was always respectful. I think that's a lesson for us, right? Now, there was only one person that they could name. Well, they called Ziba. Ziba told them about Mephibosheth, who happens to have been Jonathan's son. So this now brings into play another thing now. And it brings into play a covenant that David had made with Jonathan. David had made a covenant with Saul's son Jonathan. So that's another dimension. So here it is now. There's a son of Jonathan. Jonathan was dead, but there's a son of Jonathan. And so he says to Ziba, he makes all his inquiries, where's his son? And ask that the son be brought to him, David. Right? And so that's where we're at. Now you're going to see further on another featuring in the scriptures, another playoff in the scriptures between Ziba and Mephibosheth. But for right now, we just leave it there. He told him where the son was. David called him. And he was at a place called Amnel in Lodabar, at the house of Amnel in Lodabar. Did you happen to find out where Lodabar is, Mr. Rowe? All right. Where was it located? It was way up there in Galilee. That's where it is. So he had to travel all the way down. Lodabar, wait, you see two things there. What? Oh, one is enlargement. I get you. So I had to travel all the way down from there to where David was, in the city of David, in Zion, which was in Jerusalem. And so he had to take him that distance. Now to us it looks like nothing, but in those days it was quite a distance. So we thank God. And remember, you'll find out soon that this man is crippled. So they have to bring him down as a crippled man down to see David. You can go back to the scriptures now, thanks. Right. So here he is now. Let's go right back down. Right. No, so he comes before David, right? Where's the last verse you stop reading? Right. Somewhere there. All right. So he comes before David now. The last verse you read was verse 6, right?
No, that's it was further down.
All right, let's take it back from verse 6 then. Go right back up to verse 6.
I think it was verse 9, I was at.
Let's go right back up to verse 6. Yes, thanks. So here it is now. He comes before David. Now, if you are studying the Old Testament kings, or if you're studying anything from that era of history, you'll find out that it's very common for kings to wipe out everybody that could be a competitor, right? And so Mephibosheth is justifiably afraid because kings do this. Right throughout the Bible, there were kings who wipe out everybody. In fact, his grandfather Saul tried to wipe out David because David was a potential competitor, right? So he's afraid because this is a former king's grandson who might at some point make some kind of semi-legitimate claim to the kingship, right? So he's afraid, and then it says when he comes, he bowed down to pay him honor, right? And David said, Mephibosheth. And he said, at your service. So it comes humbly. Just go right on up for me. And he said, don't be afraid, because you could sense the terror in this man. Anybody would be terrified in that environment, right? And then he tells him his desire, which is to show kindness for the sake of your father, Jonathan. He said, I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. That's the highest order of being gracious. Isn't that wonderful? Amen. Go right on down. Pick up back from where you were at.
Then the king summoned Ziba, Saul's steward, and said to him, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him and bring in the crops, so that your master's grandson may be provided for. And Mephibosheth, grandson of your master, will always eat at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, your servant will do whatever my lord the king commands his servant to do. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son.
Just before you leave that, so he's going to eat, he's rotten rich now, because he has restored all of Saul's wealth, which is another act of intense grace. Most of us would have been glad to accumulate further wealth, because as a successor king, David could have just claimed all that belonged to David, really, right? But no, he said, look, man, you see, the things that belong to Saul are giving it to you. But you're going to eat at my table. So when Zebra and his sons and the servants farmed the land and did everything, all of that would have gone to the servants and Mephibosheth's family, right? Because David doesn't need that, and Mephibosheth himself don't need that because he is fed at David's table. He has nothing to worry about. Isn't that wonderful? Amen. So David takes him like a son, right? Let's read on from 12 now.
Mephibosheth had a young son named Micah, and all the members of Ziba's household were servants of Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table. He was lame in both feet.
Amen. I don't know if they had told you probably that what happened when there was a lot of turmoil in the kingdom. The nurse grabbed the baby and was running. The baby stumbled, fell, and that's how he became crippled. And obviously, it might have been broken and not set back properly, but that's what made him crippled. So let's look at chapter 10. Go on.
In the course of time, the king of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun succeeded him as king. David thought, I will show kindness to Hanun, son of Nahash, just as his father showed kindness to me. So David sent a delegation to express his sympathy to Hanun concerning his father. When David's men came to the land of the Ammonites, the Ammonite commanders said to Hanun, their lord, do you think David is honoring your father by sending envoys to you?
Right.
To express,
go ahead.
To express sympathy? Hasn't David sent them to you only to explore the city and spy it out and overthrow it? So Hanun seized David's envoys, shave off half of each man's beard, cut off their garments at the buttocks, and sent them away.
Yes. So, sometimes you must be careful who your advisors are. Because David was genuinely showing kindness, right? And this man misinterpreted the act based on what his advisors said. Now, there's another occurrence in the Bible, I don't know if anybody can remember it, where somebody listened to some young advisors and made a very bad decision as well. Anybody remembers? It was a very bad decision the person made because some young men told him what to do.
Rehoboam.
Solomon's son.
Yes,
Solomon's
that's
son.
it. Somebody did it. Yes, Solomon's son, Rehoboam. He made bad advice. Who you take into your personal counsel, is very important. It can be a matter of life and death, right? So David's acts were misinterpreted and they insulted this is Rehoboam, but it says, this is the example I just asked about in 2 Chronicles. It said, but Rehoboam rejected the advice the elders gave him and consulted the young men who had grown up with him and were serving him. So yes, bad counsel, and bad counsel can come from any quarters. Can come from old people, young people, rich people, poor people. It can come from anybody. But I want to say something here, that sometimes we have to reach a stage where we realize age has some benefits here, whether we like it or not. And every time, for God's people, we always have to identify in every generation what is the situation that enemies present to destroy that generation, right? So what you find, every generation, there are different elements in it that are negative, they come from the enemy. Remember, the Bible says the devil only comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy, right? Yes, that's his job. It's his full-time job. And it's his part-time job. He does that all the time. He's always sitting down and writing the script for how I can destroy individuals' lives, how I can destroy nations, how I can destroy generations, how I can destroy communities. And he's forever at it, right? That's his job. And so in every generation, you have to be looking. But here's one, and even as you brought back the whole situation of Rehoboam, Solomon's son, is that there is virtue to age. The Bible tells you that, right? The Bible tells you, whether you like it or not, once the person of X generation, once they were walking before God, right? there is age as a benefit. And some of what I'm saying is totally natural. If you have lived 70 years before the Lord, walking with Him, naturally your level of wisdom, etc., is going to be different from a 25-year-old person. It's just have different strata living concurrently at any one time. So you in the sense,
Pastor Brown,
yes,
you dropped out for a few seconds.
really?
Yes.
All right.
The
I don't know what caused
the
it.
last
What
thing
did
we
I?
heard, the last thing we heard is when you said, if you have been walking with
All
Christ.
right. What I'm trying to say, and what you use, all right, let me repeat it. You use the word of God to correct things in every element of society, whether it's an individual, a group, a church, whatever, right? It's the word of God that is the final arbiter. So I'm saying each generation, the devil tries to destroy it and he puts certain elements in it. But one of the things I've noticed in the current generation, and what I try to do here is to tell you that there are different definitions of generation. There's one definition that says anybody living at one given time is a generation. So me, you, everybody, we're the current generation, right? However, there's another definition that looks at in any one given period of time, certain strata. And you have maybe 2 generations, 3 generations alive at any one time, all right? So I'm looking at the latter now. That what I find is that the generation that is like, below probably 40, they're not reckoning with the element of age. It's like it's obliterated in their minds. So I'm saying no, but that can't be right. One, because the word of God distinctly tells you it is not so. If you read the book of Proverbs, it tells you gray hair is a blessing, gray hair is wisdom, etc. Why? Once people are walking in God, then common understanding will tell you, of course you've acquired more knowledge. Of course you've acquired more wisdom. No, get me straight. It doesn't mean if you're not walking it means if you're not walking in God, your life is arbitrary, then naturally you have not acquired what God wanted you to acquire. But let's picture a situation where the person is walking in the Lord. Of course, gray hair is a benefit, right? It is, but we have now a generation on the earth and they just don't see it. It's like the devil has blinded their eyes where they just can't see it. That it's even logical. It's even logical, right? Even a standard thing, a standard career, say, if you are 60 and you've been at this career for the last 45 years or 40 years, and you're keeping abreast of your career and you're working it, of course you will have more experience than somebody who is half your age, who has only spent maybe 10 years on the same thing. So we need to bring back the Christians in this generation to the acknowledgement of age. And as advisors and as people have acquired more knowledge is a fact of life. But the devil has destroyed that totally. You know, one of the things I've noticed different cultures. And I'm not saying we should be that, because we're who we are as a people. But you see, Africa, the honor they give to age is amazing. Some Asian countries, the honor they give to age is amazing. Western society, for whatever reason, has blotted out the benefits of age. This was not the message, but I think they'll go a little bit there and then come back to point. What they have done in the Western part of the world of which we're a part, they actually have taken the reverse approach of despising age. They've despised age. So that part of the world, they still honor age, right? This part of the world they despise age. So when it comes to even godly advice, they don't listen. It's like everybody has the same thing in their headspace, which is an impossibility. It's actually a satanic thing because what it robs an entire generation of the wisdom of their elders. It just totally robs it. It steals it from them. So they're going to have to go the hard road of finding it out for themselves. And some might never find it, right? It's just a very wrong fact of modern life that I've noticed. It's not a good thing. And if you think that is not what I'm saying, not biblical, just search the scriptures. God tells you age has wisdom. Once people are walking in God, right? Not talking about ungodly people, no. Godly wisdom, right? It is there. And so it's good to have advice. Oh, it says, gray is a crown of splendor. It has attained in the way of righteousness, which is really saying, because you walk righteously, God has given you an opportunity to even get gray hairs. But there are other things that tell you gray hair brings wisdom, meaning the walk you've done through life must have gained you something. But this generation, the enemy has taught them not to respect it. So as a result, it's totally not given to them. Totally, they are unable to step on the generation before them and even attain more. It does not mean the generation won't succeed, but it means that where they would have been able to go because they fail to understand, they can't climb on the shoulders as readily and as beautifully as they should. It's just the generation is so sad, but it's so real in our culture, right, in the Western culture. All right? Anyway, so this king now listened to the wrong advisors and insulted David. He did some things that are so wrong to the kind messengers who came to him. Let's go on now. Let's go back to the script. Right, and you read right there what he did to them. He shaved half of their heads, cut off their pants in a very, very revealing manner, and cut off their beards, half of their beard, not even the whole thing, half of it, to really, really, really insult them. Amen. So it was a beard, sorry, and this clothing, not the hair. Amen. So now, here it is, the men, it says, read on from there for me.
When David was told about this, he sent messengers to meet the men, for they were greatly humiliated. The king said, stay at Jericho till your beards have grown, and then come back.
Right.
When the Ammonites realized that they had become obnoxious to David, they hired 20,000 Aramean foot soldiers from Beth Rehob and Zobah, as well as the king of Makkah with 1,000 men, and also 12,000 men from Tob. On hearing this,
so just 1 minute. So David had not gone out and fought them, It's not like David said, oh, you have insulted me. All right, let's get going, soldiers. Let's knock off these people. It is when the king himself who did the insulting, who made this error, when he heard, and when he figured he had become obnoxious to David. So he heard that David really was saddened at what took place. He was the one who initiated war, right? Maybe David would have decided not to do it, But he decided to put war to David. So let's see how he did it. 7.
On hearing this, David sent Joab out with the entire army of fighting men. The Ammonites came out and drew up in battle formation at the entrance of the city gate, while the Arameans of Zobah and Rehob and the men of Tob and Makkah were by themselves in the open country.
Right. So they hired, they not only went out to fight, but they hired mercenaries as well to fight along with them, right? Let's go on.
Joab saw that there were battle lines in front of him and behind him. So he selected some of the best troops in Israel and deployed them against the Arameans. He put the rest of the men under the command of Abishai, his brother, and deployed them against the Ammonites. Joab said, if the Arameans are too strong for me, then you are to come to my rescue. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, then I will come to rescue you. Be strong and let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. The Lord will do what is good in his sight.
Go ahead.
Then Joab and the troops with him advanced to fight the Arameans, and they fled before him. When the Ammonites realized that the Arameans were fleeing, they fled before Abishai and went inside the city. So Joab returned from the fighting the Ammonites and came to Jerusalem.
Just pause here to say, one of the things I notice about the different wars that Israel fought in the Old Testament is that they all had different strategies, right? They were not alike, you know. Sometimes they would do like what they did here. In this case, they were the, you know, you had two flanks. This was a war being fought in two flanks by the enemy, right? And they had to, in fact, fight it in two flanks as well, right? So you had all different kinds of strategies. Some wars were more fought on a natural plane than others. Some were fought totally supernaturally, where they did nothing, like, you know, nothing natural, right? Such as Gideon's war in the Old Testament, for example, where they carried the light and the jar and snap it, and supernatural things happened, right? While some wars were more natural, like this one. So let's go on.
After the Arameans saw what had happened, saw that they had been routed by Israel, they regrouped. Hadadezer had Arameans brought from beyond the Euphrates River. They went to Helam with Shobach, the commander of Hadadezer's army, leading them. When David was told of this, he gathered all Israel, crossed the Jordan, and went to Helam. The Arameans formed their battle lines to meet David and fought against him, but they fled before Israel, and David killed 7,000 of their charioteers.
700.
700 of their charioteers and 40,000 of their foot soldiers. He also struck down Shobach, the commander of their army, and he died there. When all the kings who were vassals of Hadadezer saw that they had been routed by Israel, they made peace with the Israelites and became subjects to them. So the Arameans were afraid to help the Ammonites anymore.
I'm just laughing because look how many people died because of a single act of stupidity. Right? Let's just think about it. Suppose they had just seen the graciousness that was being displayed. Suppose they had just seen that David meant nothing. He's just being gracious because they know the history of the relationship between David and the father. Right? So suppose they had not insulted David. All these people, their lives would have been spared. Right? What we cannot neglect, though, is the fact that sometimes when some things occur, it is actually almost, I don't want to say orchestrated by God, but God uses it for good, right? Because what it managed to do is to subdue these people under David. So even though he did not initiate war, they were subdued under him because they came to fight him. And you're going to find a lot of times in the Old Testament coming up from the first wars in the Trans-Euphrates right up, you're going to find some wars where Israel is not the aggressor. But the wars were good in the sense that they established Israel in a leadership role in the nations round about them. So the wars could have been avoided, but the people triggered their own war and hence their own defeat. And the result of it was that David consolidated his position in the area, right? And so, and look at that. So other kings came and made peace with David. So the area is becoming more and more subdued, which ultimately was what God wanted. Because remember, I said it was a kingdom, the establishment of the kingdom phase of Israel. Saul had failed to do it. Saul messed up dangerously. He was the first king, but he had not established it. Even in the matter of the Amalekites, I hope I got the right tribe, even in that matter where God said, kill off everything, he had disobeyed and could not establish the kingdom of Israel. The nation was formed, but not the kingdom needed to be established. It is David now that God is using to establish a kingdom. And so all of these things that were happening were actual necessities so that he would have a kind of rulership in the era in which they existed. Right? Amen. Let's go on to the next chapter. Next chapter is what you call a big chapter. Though this is just, oh no, it's not yet that chapter. I thought we had reached. Yes, this is called a big chapter, you know. It's called a big chapter because everybody knows this story. Huh? And the more you read the Old Testament, I'm a lover of the Old Testament, the more you read it, is the more you find how honest God is. I'll never stop speaking about the honesty of the Word of God. You know, this morning I was actually reading another book, not this one. I was reading in Genesis. And when I saw how honest God was about issues like the fight between Leah and Rachel, you know, this fight over the Jacob. You know, I remember one point when her son, one of her Leah's son, came with the mandrakes, and Rachel just said, "Could I have some of the mandrakes?" She said, "What? What? You took away my husband, you also want the mandrakes?" And so the deal was struck that, you know, and she said, "All right, give me some of the mandrakes, and you will have my husband sleeping. You'll have Jacob sleeping with you tonight." Tell me, this is what happened. You know? So Leah actually said she went out when Jacob came. She said, "You need to sleep with me tonight because I bought you with bad tricks." Can you imagine? You want to find it? I just talk about honesty.
Yeah, because of those persons who don't know the story, just to say that they were both wives of Jacob. So it's not
Right.
a pimp thing, you know.
Yes, they were both wives. But, you know, one would think God would leave that out. You know, it's so degrading. This is a patriarch. It's a patriarch. You want the patriarch to look good. We're coming to one of the most revealing chapters in the Bible where God hid nothing. And throughout the Bible, God has been so honest. You might not know it, but there is another religion, I won't call the name, and they actually use it to castigate the Jews and the Christians because they're saying, what kind of God is this who does this and does that and does that? Because they don't understand the honesty of the God we serve. So let's just read it for believers who might not know the story. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants. These must have been very delicious plants. I don't know what mandrake plants are, but it was very interesting to find out, right? Some mandrake plants. Maybe you can look it up, Mr. Rowe. Which he brought to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Was it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take away my son's mandrakes as well?" This is a real, what we call a cast between two women. You understand what I'm saying? Right. "Very well," Rachel said. "He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." My goodness. Excuse me, right? So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. "You must sleep with me," she said. "I've hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he slept with her that night. Now, who would think that God would choose to include that in his holy book? Don't move. But let me tell you something. Poor Jacob must have said, "You know something? I'm not even getting involved in this." You say, "Oh, I must sleep." All right, just let me just do it. And that's my imagination being applied to it. No, you understand? The point I want to make about a scripture like this one, and there are many more in the Bible like this one, is how revealing it is and how much our God, the God we serve, is transparent. He puts it in there and he leaves us to analyze and to understand the issues of it. And so this is what he did in Samuel chapter 11, 2 Samuel. It's a chapter like this. He's going to speak of his king. Go ahead, back to the oh, you found a mandrake. What is it? Those are pictures. Can you tell me what it is? No text. Read something. Tell us what it really is. Because it's different plants.
It's an aphrodisiac.
Oh, it's an aphrodisiac. Oh, really? No, that's only one function, I'm sure. Let's look at some more things. I can't read this, kind of fine. You tell me, Kirkland, what does it say there? In the Bible. Now let's see what it is. Somebody read it first, no?
The mandrake
Yes,
is
go
a
ahead.
strange plant mentioned only in Genesis 30, verse 14, and Song of Songs 7, verse 13. Although it is a common plant in many parts of Israel, mandrake is a member of the nightshade family that includes some of the most poisonous plants such as nightshade, Jimson weed, tobacco, and paradoxically, some of the most common vegetables such as potatoes, tomatoes, green pepper, and eggplants. As the Bible so accurately describes, the mandrake often grows as a weed in wheat fields. The plant consists of several large, wrinkled, dark green leaves that lie flat upon the ground, forming a rosette. In the center of this rosette, a cluster of attractive purple flowers appear in the winter. The roots of the mandrake may be several feet long and weigh several pounds. It has bizarre, often human-like shapes, and for this reason is highly regarded by the superstitious. The fruit, as noted in Song of Songs, are produced in the early summer and have a very attractive fragrance. Palestinians warned me that it was toxic. If it is poisonous, then the poison is either very weak or very slow acting, as I felt no discomfort after tasting a bit.
Yeah, well, whatever it was, Rachel really likes it, man. This is story. So let's go now to David and Bathsheba, which almost everybody knows his story, right? Let's read Pastor Morris.
In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed, walked around on the roof of the palace, and from the roof he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, "I am pregnant."
All right, let's go back to the top now. All right. Wow. Yes, so he didn't go to war. And I've heard many messages. He should have gone to war. Indeed, he should have gone to war. What good reason would David have for not going to war? Clearly, he wasn't sick. So why didn't he go to war? I guess you reach a stage in your life you just don't feel like. I remember something that happened to me once when we used to do a lot of night meetings and we were having a meeting somewhere. I think it was in Ellison Flats. And I just feel like I wasn't going to bother to go to church that night. Church was going on. There was no real reason why I wasn't going to church. And I stayed home. And that night somebody tried to break into the house. I'm just saying, that really and truly I belonged at the meeting. There was no good reason for me not to be at the meeting. And in all the messages I've heard, nobody has ever found a good reason why David was not at war. He stayed home, right? And let's go down. So here it is now. You notice it said, what if he got up out of his bed? One evening he got up out of his bed. It didn't say one morning, he said one evening he got up out of his bed. So he was actually lounging and enjoying himself. And he decided to go on his roof. You can imagine David just saying, "Wow, what a great day." Stretching. Because listen, walking around my roof, just relaxing, you understand me, maybe playing a little of his harp or whatever, and then he's just enjoying himself. And then he looked at some woman bathing because she was bathing on a roof. Now, to us, it's alien. Why would you go on a roof? It's very possible for a young person to read as somebody who doesn't have knowledge of the Bible, Israel, or the days in which this took place, and say, "What? This woman is crazy. Why this woman being on a roof? Can't she go into her bathroom?" Yeah, I can readily hear them. Should she be inside her house? Obviously, this was a practice. And she went on a roof, which should have been a private area. But the king's palace happened to be quite tall, and he happened to see her bathing, right? So normally up on your roof, the way it was constructed would have been safe, but this one was not. So here she was bathing. She was beautiful, the Bible tells
Pastor
us.
Lynn,
Yes.
just to say, the text says from the roof he saw a woman bathing. So I'm not sure
Let's go back
if
to
it
it again.
indicates that she was bathing on it.
Well, one thing I can tell you, she had to be outside.
Yes, outside, yes.
Yes, it should have to be outside for him to see her from his roof, right? Well, all right. Maybe she was on a roof, but definitely she had to be in a visible position. All right? So let's go on. All right. So here it is. David saw her, sent for her. And I want to say here, brethren, that, there have been people say, but she shouldn't have gone. She's a married woman. Why would she go to David if David called her? But, one of my most interesting things in reading the Bible is to read the Bible and try to understand the role of women. I love to look into the script and be able to understand it. I don't remember what I was reading recently. Oh, it was Julie and I, Mrs. Service, were looking at the Zipporah incident with Moses. And I was saying that when you read the Bible, you always have to understand the role of women. You always have to understand that the Bible was written in a patriarchal society, was written by men. Women were seen as very, very unimportant. So whenever you see a woman peek through, you have to look, this is not her only self. There was a lot more about her, but they had to state this because it was relevant, very relevant, and they chose to state it. So here it is, they stated the woman was beautiful, she was bathing, and that was very important that she was bathing, because it goes on to tell you after her uncleanness, right? Why is this so important? Okay, it proved that she was not pregnant for her husband, Uriah, right? The mere fact that she was having the purification rites of a ritual, a bath, right, that she had to take after her menstrual cycle and a certain amount of days had passed, shows she wasn't pregnant at the time for Uriah. And that was important for the Bible to state, right? So David saw her, David sent for her. A woman like that being sent for, not only by a man, but the king. You had nothing, you had no rights. You understand me? As I was saying to myself, if it was a regular man, not the king, maybe, just maybe, you could send for your brother as a father, I would assume, try to project my mind into their culture. But the king had such power, and he sent for you. And in a way, I don't think she was told what she was being sent for, but she was sent for, and she went, right? And when she went, let's go on. He slept with her, and she conceived and was pregnant. Right. So let's read on, my sister.
So David sent this word to Joab, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all his master's servants and did not go down to his house. David was told.
Stop a minute. This is one of the most honorable men in the Bible, believe me. Uriah was a Hittite, by the way. It says so, right?
Yes.
Further up, right? So this man is just honorable. How many men you got a reprieve from war? You came home from war, right? You have this beautiful wife. You have not seen her. Let's be honest though. Let us be honest. You have not seen that wife in a while, Mr. Stewart. You tell me, let me hear a man's perspective. You have not seen her. You get the war tough, the war horrid, and you get a holiday from war. And let's hear it.
I sleep with them and kings.
I'm not hearing you. Your bike. You have to fix your bike and make sure we hear what you're saying.
Pastor Brown and brethren, I tell you the truth, I'm not sleeping with no man in a palace step.
You don't go for no palace step. You're going into your warm, cozy bed with your wife. This man, you know, don't again you meet a character and you really have to lift your hat to that character, right? Because he had such a deep commitment. So he said, so David invited him, he said, go down to your house, man, wash your feet. So Uriah left the palace and the gift from the king was sent after him. So he actually sent gifts, man, right? Make him relaxed, right? But Uriah slept at entrance to the palace with his master's servants and did not go down to his house. Wow, character, that's what we call it. Let's read on.
David was told, Uriah did not go home. So he asked Uriah, haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home? Uriah said to David, the ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing.
Let's go back to where you started reading. The ark. Where's it again? Go down back to where the last, right? The ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents. And my commander Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? You know something? Do you realize the exact thing David did? David, the ark was still in the tent, right? Everything was as he described. Joab was out there fighting the battles of Israel in the open country, right? All of that was still as was, but David didn't care. David went in and not only did he sleep, but he didn't sleep with his wife, he slept with somebody else's, right? So it just positions him against David, you know, and showed what was transacting at that very time. Amen. Let's go down. Read on.
And David said to him, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I'll send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him. David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants.
He did not go home. Right. So David is saying, all right, must get this guy to go home, man. He actually made him drunk. He drunk, get drunk, and the man still had enough sensibility, enough character to say, not going home, you know? Not going home. Anyway, read on.
In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it, he wrote, put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him so he'll be struck down and die.
Yes, amen. And he bore the letter to his own death. Can you imagine? He carried the letter to Joab with the death sentence in it. Let's go on. And of course, everybody is following, because what David is doing, all right, she's pregnant. So let's try and make it seem like it's Uriah's child. So that was the first tactic. Send for Uriah. Uriah refused to sleep with his wife because of good reasons. He was a nobleman. And try and getting him drunk, he still wouldn't do it. So all right then, the only thing I can do is kill him, because he realized, this man is going to realize I impregnated his wife. I'm the king of Israel, right? And here it is, I impregnated a man who is fighting for me, right? Fighting my battles. So he didn't want anybody to know. All right, let's go on.
So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. Joab sent David a full account of the battle. He instructed the messenger, when you have finished giving the king this account of the battle, the king's anger may flare up, and he may ask you, why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they would shoot arrows from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerub-Besheth?
Yes.
Didn't a woman drop an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died in Thebes? Why did you get so close to the wall? If he asks you this, then say to him, moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead.
All right. So he sent back word to David. After he had done all of that, in order to get Uriah to die, Joab had to make it look like it was an accident. He couldn't just send Uriah alone up to the city wall. Look at that, everybody doing it. So why is sending Uriah up there? So what he did, he devised a war strategy where he sent a number of soldiers. Now, this story that was mentioned, as far as I remember, it's in the book of Judges, where a woman threw a millstone and killed somebody because he went too close to the wall. So in the wall cities of ancient times, when you were fighting, you didn't go right up against the wall because then you were vulnerable. People could throw hot water on you, hot oil. They could throw stones on you. If you go too close, they could use arrows. So your strategies had to be such that none of these could be used. But instead, knowing all of that, Joab, who was an excellent army commander, head of the army of Israel, sent a number of soldiers to do something right up against the wall. Why? Because David had commanded to make sure Uriah is dead. However, he could not just send Uriah. So in the effort, not only Uriah died, a number of men died. So this murder that was committed then wasn't just Uriah, it was quite a few people, right? And he made sure he sent back the message to David and said, if he asks him a question, tell him Uriah is dead as well, right? Let's go on. Let's read on.
The messenger set out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, the men overpowered us and came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. David told the messenger, say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. So say this to encourage Joab. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife, bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord.
All right, so next week we'll see how the Lord worked it out, because indeed the Lord was displeased, because you saw lust, you saw adultery, you saw deceit and lies, you saw murders, multiple murders, because a number of people died as a result of it, and you saw a heart that was dishonest. And you know, that's the thing about the human heart, in fact. You know, we have a way of being dishonest, you know, until the Holy Ghost comes and really convicts us and we yield to that conviction. We can tell ourselves lies about ourselves. You know, we cannot understand the gravity of the wickedness of our own hearts and what we've done. And this is where David finds himself at this time. But there's somebody who was watching, and that person cannot be fooled, right? His name was the Lord. His name is God. And he was watching David, and he's now going to make his verdict on the whole matter. So next week when we come, we look at the verdict, look at what God said. God gave his own opinion and how the things unfolded for David from now on. But the thing to remember is that the Bible did not hide this thing. And to remember that David was called the King of Kings, which is a typology of the true King of Kings. And he's the consolidator of God's kingdom. And yet God revealed everything, showed up everything. God was so honest. And he's going to show God's own heart in reference to these various sins. God is a good God. And we thank God for this evening as we continue to plow through the book of 2 Samuel. May God richly bless you. Any comments, by the way? Maybe you saw an insight which I did not see. Or maybe there's a spiritual truth you saw, or a question you want to ask, or a comment you want to make. you're more than
Yes, Rev.
welcome to do it. Yes, Brother
But
Gardner.
I wanted to go back to Uriah the Hittite. I really
Yes.
love this
This
testimony here
gentleman.
from Uriah. It's a powerful testimony because
Yes.
the fact that when you're drunk, you're still holding to your deep conviction.
Yes.
Suggests that
That's something.
this is something very, very deep,
Yes.
something that you're committed to. And even in your subconscious, you're still very much able to hold on to it. And it's when I've reflected on this for a thing that the Lord pointed to me years ago.
Yes.
That there was an incident that happened, and I felt inside of me shook. And I said, Father, I've never experienced that before. What's that? It says that you have to be at the place, and I can't remember the exact words, but you just have to be at a place where you're trusting and you're not afraid.
Yes.
Right. And I realized that even my own commitment to even for sexual purity was another commitment and conviction that I spoke with others and I shared with the ones that I'm mentoring and discipling that listen, this thing has to be your commitment to be holy and pure and clean has to be something that is deeply ingrained. That even when you're resting, no devil can mess with you and come talk about night dream and wet dream and all them something. Then come around with me. Whether I'm awake or asleep, left me because I'm deeply committed to this. But you will be exposed. You will know what is happening when you start to have certain kind of experiences. Then you can go back to the Lord and say, Lord, what is there an open door in my heart, life, whatever, and start it up before the Lord, because whether we're awake, slightly awake, fully sleeping, whatever, our commitment must never be unwavering. It must be solid.
That's a very important point. It's very important. You're saying the commitment must be so deeply rooted
so deep,
that when you, God forbid, but all if you're drunk,
yeah,
it is there.
No,
it's
a massive point. In his subconscious, it's still a hole. Nah, man. He was not struggling, in other words, with this area.
Yes, he was on the fridge.
War, me go war.
He was on the fridge.
In a nothing right now but war. War, that upon my mind, right?
He was
the
focused.
Lord's battle. Focus. Sharp like one of those arrows that in Genesis chapter 49 talk about that arrow. Joseph kept his eyes on the target.
Thank you, Jesus.
Nah, distract.
Yes.
Them kind of focus that we need to have in order to really make it in this time. This unwavering, undiluted focus on the kingdom of God.
But I like that phrase. That's what will make it in these times. Very important. But I'm so glad you shared that. But there's one little point that I want to remind you of too. It's in 2 Samuel's 20. Oh, come on, thing. You just went and clicked where you shouldn't. 23, I think it is. Yes, let me see if it's 23. It's just a little note here, a very important little note before we leave. Why is this thing doing this to me? 2 Samuel 23. Look at verse 29. Put up verse 39, sorry, for me, Kirkland. And this is a little important point that I don't want us to miss. Yes, it was this chapter is dealing with David's mighty men, and the 39, right? And it mentions some like Zelek the Ammonite, and it go down to all these names: Joab son of Zeruiah, Ira the Israelite, and it goes on down. Uriah the Hittite was one of his mighty men. He was one of the mighty men of Israel. In fact, you see this particular battle that we looked at in chapter 9 a while ago. I think it was chapter 9. When we looked at it, and it says, just go back to chapter 9. Can you see these little things? They are very important to understand. Just go back down a little bit. First verses. The part where, it wasn't 9, maybe it's chapter 10 or 11, where it's chapter 10, where he said that he gathered them for battle. It's chapter 10. And he when he called out the army, after he was attacked, and he called out the army, that spot there, right? She went, No, right. On hearing this, David sent Joab out with the entire army of fighting men. And if you read into it, it will tell you in some places that was a mighty men he called out. Because all these mighty men who had come to join him in the army, which later on we're going to read about in 2 Samuel, some of them went out to this battle, you know. Joab was there, and Uriah was one of the mighty men of David. Maybe this is something I need to emphasize. Uriah had joined David out in the wilderness and suffered with him. Right? I was going to share it this week, you know, and the reason I was going to share it this week because I didn't get to read into it. But I remember from previous readings that Uriah was one of the mighty men, right? Now, what I have to check this week, I think, but I will double check. He was in the wilderness. Can you imagine your lowest point? If I am correct, if my memory serves me right, I'm going to double check. So if I'm wrong, don't castigate me, but I'm going to double check. But in your lowest point, you're in the wilderness running from Saul, and one of your mighty men who came to join you is Uriah. He's a Hittite, but he joins, he's faithful to David. Right. The reason, one other thing I need to check out, because I think I've also seen him, Uriah being called a Gittite as well. I'm not sure. So I need to check all that this week and come back with a more productive discourse on it. But as far as I understand, you fight so faithfully for your king. There's a phrase in the Bible that you're going to come upon. It says they were dedicated to making David king. And you sacrifice him for sin. You sacrifice for your lust, for your temptation. It has a lot of spiritual truth in it. It tells you too that, to be frank, you can't trust people, you know. People will throw you on their bus if they need to. Even if later on they're going to repent. Just imagine that scenario. So even if later on they're going to repent, you understand what I'm saying? The fact is Uriah is dead already, right? And so the heart of man can, in a moment of sin, betray you. Even if later on they're sorry, you're gone, right? So it's just one of these things about the dangers of life. The beautiful thing, though, that Uriah was a man of utmost integrity. And I love to study characters in the Bible because they teach us so much. And this man Uriah has a lot to teach. Yes.
Just a comment, even as you spoke about the
Yes.
heart of man. I'm
Yes.
just thinking of David was really at a place. His heart really must have been straying there because it's
Yes.
like he did it without caring, because I'm saying he must have known. It couldn't be hidden because the servants that went for Bathsheba would have known. And the
Yeah,
servant,
but in that culture and society, who cares about the servants anyway? They were powerless. It's not like today you can go to CVM and tell what happened. They were powerless. They were non-entities, you know, in the whole scheme of things, right? So, but the thing about it, at least if they were low-ranking servants, let's put it that way. If they were low-ranking servants, you have some high-ranking servant who just came across guys like Ziba, and later on you see how powerful Ziba was, right? So what I'm saying, my sister, yes, he didn't care at that moment. He did care, but he cared about David. And he cared about the lust in David's own heart. And it underscores what Orlando was saying, my brother Orlando, that we have to keep our hearts at a place at all time. This wonderful man of God, but look where he ended up going, right? So we have to be watching our hearts every step of the way. It doesn't make sense for us to boast, oh, I would never do that. Oh, this could never happen to me. It can. If you are not abiding, that's what the Bible says in John chapter 15, abiding day and night in the vine. So you're intact, you're getting from the vine, you're being replenished on a day-to-day basis. You can't decide to take a holiday from reading your Bible and praying. He took a holiday from where he should be, and look what happened to him. So our maintenance of our life before God is a day-to-day routine, right? So we're seeing David in a very low spiritual place, the wicked things, and Uriah shining in his character, all in one chapter. So next week we'll continue and look more in a more in-depth manner what took place and what followed. So God bless you, my sisters.